Hi, thanks for tuning in today to Front Porch Conversations here at Advent Christian Village. It's a lovely rainy day, and we're going to have beautiful flowers from this. That's my positive attitude for the day, for the rain. I want to welcome our guest today, Marcela Frazier. Marcela, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about where you were born and your years of growing up.
Okay. I was born in the city of David in the Republic of Panama, 1947. I went to a Catholic school, my high school years. So I became a secretary at the time. When I graduated, I was still 17 years old. My first job was a secretary at the National Bank in my little hometown. My dream was to be a bilingual secretary. So
let's stop there for a minute. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about growing up in the Republic of Panama.
Well, in those days we didn't have much. Our games were homemade games, and I spent most of my time away from home, because when I went to school, I went to stay with my Aunt Sarah and my grandmother Catalina. So all those growing years I spent with them and just going to school. Once in a while we would have a matinee movie, mm-hmm. or we just kids around the block will gather at nighttime and tell stories or do some kind of hide and seek games. Those were very simple for us in those days.
But I'm sure a big part of who you are today because of that interaction with, your family, extended family. And
yes.
Okay. What was your favorite subjects in school?
Well, I did work with accounting, and we had shorthand in those days, mm-hmm. in English and Spanish. So mainly that.
So you had to be bilingual in shorthand as well, huh?
We had to, yeah.
I can't even. My mother did shorthand, and I don't know how anybody ever figures that out. So I can't imagine having to do it in two different languages.
Well, it was in those days because we graduated in 5 years. Mm-hmm. So we just really study to be a secretary and with some accounting experience also. So.
I'm sorry I interrupted you when you were talking about your dream was to be a bilingual secretary.
Yes.
And where did that lead you?
The last Christmas before I graduated, I made a trip to Panama City to visit my cousin and godfather. And while I was there, he introduced me to this family. Their last name was English, and they were in the military, stationed at the Canal Zone. So while we were visiting, they told me that whenever they came back to the States and they had their own house, that they would invite me to come and stay with them so I could learn English, mm-hmm. more English. So I graduated and worked for a year, and one day a letter came to me that the Englishes were back in the States and they were keeping their word. So I have managed to save a little money during that year, and my parents gave me permission. So I was 18 at the time, and I came to the States. I stayed in Pennsylvania for about 8 months. I went to high school again to the last year, so just to learn more English. And then on my way back home, I stopped here in Florida to visit my another cousin who was my godmother, and I have never met her. And they lived in Frostproof here in Florida. So while I was with them, they invited me to stay one more year to go to college then, and learn a little more English. So I stayed a year, but during that year, I met my husband, Kenneth, and he had just gone into the service. And so he came home a weekend, I think it was Labor Day weekend, and his parents were friends with my family. So they brought him over to meet me, and we visited for about 30, 45 minutes, and we never saw again each other. He had gone, they sent him to Korea, so he never came back home. So one day during Easter time, his mother came over and asked me if Ken would like for me to write to him. So she took a picture of me and told him yes. So we started writing each other while he was in Korea. So it was time for me to go back home, and he asked me to stay until he got back. I said, no, if you want to see me again, you're going to have to make a trip back to Panama. So when he came back from Korea 2 weeks later, out to Panama he went, off to Panama. So it was during that visit, it was Christmas time, before Christmas. So he stayed there 2 weeks, and we got engaged. And so we were supposed to get married in a year, and but he said that he was being sent somewhere else, and he wanted to get married before. So we ended up getting married in July. So that was July of 1968. And so I came back to the States, and our first home was in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He was sent again back to Korea. While we were married, he was sent to Korea twice. So
What did
3
he do in
times.
the military?
He was in the Army, and he was a motor pool sergeant. So from there, we had our first child while he was in Korea. And when he came back, we moved around a little bit in another state. We went to Germany, 3 years in Germany. My second daughter was born in Germany. And then the third child was born in Oklahoma. When we were in Oklahoma, he went to officer school. So he got his warrant officer degree. And he was sent to Korea again for the third time. But this time, Ken got sick shortly after he was there. He was put in quarantine and sent back to the States to Walter Reed, where they found out he had Hodgkin's disease. He was 29 at the time.
Oh, wow.
So he was disabled, 100% disabled for several years. And we had 3 children. The youngest was 2 years old at the time. And so we just dealt with that for quite some time. Ken was able later, a few years later, to go back to work for a little bit. So he worked 10 years with Pepsi. And so he wasn't feeling quite well then, and decided he's going to retire and come to live in Mayo. He used to come to hunt in Mayo since he was 12 years old. So that's why we ended up in Mayo. And
while you were in Europe, did you get to travel see some of Europe?
The last year we were there, we made a little traveling. Ken worked at the motor pool doing the inspections, so he was gone all week. He only came home during weekends. So we got to go to Spain, to France, Austria, Switzerland, And that's about it, our traveling over there.
Your children don't have memories of living overseas, do they? Were they too young?
Marty was about 5 or 6 when we left. And Ken, I was pregnant with Ken when we traveled back home. So they don't remember much of our stay over there. But
so where did they remember growing up?
well, we were stay here in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, because the last time that Ken went to Korea, we stayed in Orlando while he was gone, and when he came back, well, we stayed there for some times. We moved to Kissimmee, lived in Kissimmee, and from there is where we moved to Mayo. So.
You were telling me the other day about him enjoying hunting so much, but you didn't know that it could be year-round when you lived there. Right?
Oh, yes. I thought he always came hunting for a couple of weeks, and I thought that's what it was, just the 2-week hunting out of the year. So we got all settled in, and all of a sudden Ken is hunting all the time. And I said, well, what happened? I thought it was 2 weeks. He says, no, there is hunting with this rifle, hunting with this other rifle, hunting with a bow and arrow, hunting with a turkey, hunting with the... So he was hunting all the time. So I decided, okay, if that's what he's going to do the rest of his life, then I better find something for me to do. And so I started volunteering at the school, which then there was an opening for a bilingual person that they needed at the school, and I got the job. So I was working with the ESOL program and the migrant students, mostly from Mexico, and with their parents at nighttime. So I became a translator for the community and for the school during the years that we were there. We moved in November of 1993, and came down with another type of cancer at the time. Then he had a lung cancer. They said that it could have been a long-term side effect from his cobalt treatments that he had had. When he had the Hodgkins, they didn't give him more than 4 years to live, but he lived 20 years. So he got to see his children grow up and every one of them being married. So from the time they diagnosed Ken in January, it was 5 months until he passed. So we were in Mayo when he passed. I stayed in Mayo a couple of years, and then I gave everything away to my children, to friends, and I decided I was going to become a caregiver for family, relatives, friends, whatever I was needed. So for 20 years, I was going from here to there, including the last 9 years in Panama, helping to take care of my mother, my father, and my sister, the 3 of them. Dad was 98, my mom 93, and my sister 80 years old. So from there I came here. It was time I thought I needed to get a break, recharge my batteries, and set roots again. Mm-hmm. So a dear friend from Mayo told me, Marcela, you have to go see the village. I said, yes, I had been to the village before, 20 years before, to visit a friend's mother. And it was, at the time, it was only the nursing home, mm-hmm. the Good Sam. And so she brought me one day, and when we came through the south entrance, and I looked ahead of me, I said, oh my goodness, this is like a piece of heaven. Oh, to me, I said, I think I'd like to give it a try.
And when did you actually move?
The 14th of this month is going to be 2 years that I moved. So I thought I'd give it a try a year and see how it went. And so when I moved in here, I said, what am I going to do now? So then I found out about all the volunteer works that they have. So I decided I'm going to be a tour guide. I'm going to work with the Good Sam, with the activity programs that they have there for the residents. And so I started going to every one of the services they had in here, the exercises, I wanted to try everything because I wanted to have the experience so I could tell the people that I was giving a tour what we had to offer. So I kept myself busy with those volunteer works until we got all shut down. So then we started with making the masks.
Right,
and
we made a lot of masks, didn't we?
yes, we made
I know you
masks,
missed.
wrote notes to all the residents over there at Good Sam. So every time something, I just readjust my volunteer work and try to keep busy and just give thanks to God that He's put me in a place where I feel safe and a place where we really care for one another. It's not perfect, but looking at what we have in my country, I can see that we have so much here that we don't realize how good God has been to us.
Well, the first time we met, I believe, was not this Christmas, but the previous. And you and your family had come and helped decorate some of the Christmas trees.
Yes.
You got everybody involved, right?
Yes, I asked my son and his wife if they like to do marathons. Mm-hmm. And so Good Sam was having one of those, and I invited them, and they came, and they did the marathon. And then we found out about that for Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving, they were going to start decorating the village with all the Christmas decorations. So they came and helped also to serve at Good Sam on Thanksgiving Day. And then the very next day, they started working with Paul to do all the setting up all the Christmas trees and the different buildings and around the village. So.
And for our viewers, that's no small task. There's probably 20 or 25 Christmas trees just indoors around the village during Christmas.
Yes.
And all of them unique.
That was very exciting for them, and they were willing to come back again to do this with us. So.
When you said that you felt like when you first came on campus, it was a special place, how else would you describe that to people who haven't had the chance to visit?
Like I said, to me, it looked like that must be how heaven looks like when I walk in here. But I always told them when we are getting a certain age, we want to feel secure, and we still want to have a social life. Mm-hmm. And in here, we can share all our gifts, and there is a little bit for everybody. And whether you like music, the photography, the gardening, your exercise, there is just a little bit for everybody. So I just told them, it's time for us to just enjoy life. And
Well, it certainly seems that throughout your life you've served others, and it was, I know, a tremendous blessing to you, but particularly to them as well, I'm sure.
I have met so many good friends in here. I feel like I belong, and I have no regrets to have moved here. And I know when I go to bed every night, I feel safe. I'm not afraid to be there by myself. And I just wanted to be independent a little bit longer. And
Well, with your family heritage and longevity, I think you'll have a long time to enjoy being here.
And my children and grandchildren, they were concerned, but once they all came to visit the village and see what we had here and how everything was set up, then they all were happy and glad that I have chosen this place to live. And at the same time being able to continue to do my caregiver
Serve others.
service, yes.
You, when we visited, we talked a little bit about your grandchildren. Share with our viewers about how many grandchildren you have.
I have 5 grandchildren, 1 step-grandchild, and the oldest is 23, just got married in December, and the youngest is 9 years old. Mason was born with spina bifida, and so he has no feeling from his knees down. And since the first day he was born, he has had like 38 surgeries. Wow. His feet, his ankles, his legs, his hips. But he's a very bright, intelligent little boy, and in school he's one of the best students in his class, and he participates in all kinds of sports. The first one he started doing was little leagues. So he would learn to bat from his sitting on his wheelchair, and his mom would help him push him around the bases whenever he had to run. And so he did that for about 3-4 years until he got out of it. But then he does water skiing, he swims, he fishes, you name it. His mother exposed him to a lot of things so he can keep his mind and know that even though his body is not able to, but there's ways that they can do things in a different way. So now they have programs where the sports are, how do you call it? They
Are adapted? Is that
they
what
adapt. They adapt the sports for children like Mason. So he's been able now. He loves to do sled hockey. So he's out there in the ice doing sled hockey. So he's always sitting when he's water skiing or doing any of these sports. He sits. It's been adapted so he can sit and do it from there. So he is got some muscles on his body, but for him to be able to walk, he's got to use braces all the way to his legs, all to his spinal. So he uses a walker, or he uses the crutches, and but when he's sitting on those things, he's just going and going.
he looks like a real competitor.
He is.
When we visited, Marcela was showing me some videos on her phone of him participating in all these various sports. It was really emotionally uplifting to see what he was able to do, and the support he has from others to help do that.
Yes.
And a mom who's very dedicated to being sure.
She takes him, and well, he's learned to he's met so many people now that have accomplished a lot in their life, even though they have been what would you say it?
May have had some challenges,
Yes.
physical challenges.
So he has learned you can go whatever you can want to, if you're willing to work at it, and so he's still facing more surgeries to come, and he's learning a lot of things now that he's growing up. He's learning to take care of himself also, and well, we're very proud of my son.
And that's not just a grandmother talking, is it?
No.
Lots of people are.
Yes.
Marcela, would you share with us a little bit about your faith and how you came to faith and have grown in your faith?
Well, I grew up as a Catholic, and growing up, my parents really didn't go much to church. So it was my sister who was always taking me to the services, to Mass, to whatever we were having in church, she would take me. And then later on when I went to school, I went to Catholic school. So that was reinforced to me all. And then after I got married, I came to, Ken was a Baptist. So we had to have a special permission from the bishop to have a mixed marriage. So when we talked about it, I said, Ken, my faith is very important to me. And at the time he said he was not going to his church. And so he always allowed me to go and have the children baptized and do receive their sacraments at the church. So 10 years after we were married, after Ken had his the first cancer, he became a Catholic. So we did some work together at church. We visited the sick at the hospital, and we were ministers of the Eucharist in our Mass. So then looking back, God has always, we have gone through ups and downs and difficult times, but we have made it through. And I think by the grace of God, He's been with us all along. And so seeing all this to me has given me more faith in that God is good.
Well, you are certainly a great witness for him as well. Thank you so much for sharing with us today and all you do here at the Village, and look forward to having more conversations with you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back again, so look for us on TV too.